music multiverse listeners, and welcome back to Beyond Your Radio, Unknown Sundays. It's time again to talk about another band or artist or something in the music multiverse that is relatively unknown or has been missed, misplaced, misguided, forgotten, that our watchers, collectors, and listeners might be very interested in. A rabbit hole to go down, past and or present. Please remember that this is an extension of our article sections again on beyondyourradio.com. So if you want the full detail, they're written by me with links. They're there. And on this one, there are definitely a couple of links that might interest you as a music multiverse traveler. The 1990s were just out of control from start to finish. If you don't believe so, the amount of influx of bands and things that were coming in and going out, the types of styles, genres, the crossovers, etc. I wanted to do this band earlier, and I didn't realize the entire scope of the story and the intricacies of everything within it. So I decided to hold off a bit. So here we are today. There are all kinds of incoming and outgoing music styles at this point, genres, bands, and artists that were even bending the listening habits of radio stations, confusing and blurring the lines of what to play. I have tons of examples of this, but today's Unknown Sundays, I'm going to, while part of the band sort of lost in the scene to some degree at a certain point of the band's lifespan, which still continues to this day, shifted their genre just enough to get some outsider radio attention beyond their start as an alternative metal crossover band in 1989. Scoring their wonderful debut and a hard-hitting debut and I don't know, not an easy debut called River Runs Red. It happened in 1993 on the quintessential label Roadrunner, who definitely had their ear on the pulse of things like this when they're leaving the late 80s and coming into the 1990s. So that's a score, right, for them, and a big deal for a band coming out of the cramped Brooklyn, New York music scene, not to mention the overall global music scene at the time. It was also extremely risky to have a debut concept album that dealt darkly with parent neglect, bleak family life, mental and substance abuse, and ultimately suicide. Welcome to Life of Agony on Unknown Sundays 2025. Somewhere between hardcore, grunge, alternative, and a very real emotional delivery that truly might surprise your ears even today. Now, my journey did not begin at the debut, and I wonder what it might have been had I actually followed them at the start. In fact, I wonder what it might have been for any of that if more people would have followed them at the start, if there would have been a concession for this kind of music at that point. River Runs Red is considered to be in the top 250 metal albums of all time. When considering the lists and names over the years since they first started getting into such a list back in the 2017 per Rolling Stone magazine, they were in the top 100. As a matter of fact, at that point, they were at 58. The only reason I say 250 is because there's been a lot of influx of other records at the time. The album spares no expense in dispensing its truth and metal mashing and allowing the large baritone vocal of Keith Caputo, who also plays keyboards in the band, who registers on this album somewhere between Alice in Chains, Stone Temple Pilots, and Type O Negative, whose keyboardist actually produced the album. In fact, Sal, the drummer for Life of Agony, actually drums as well for Type O Negative. Keith was definitely made for music, this kind of music especially, and a passion for truthful connective tissues for songwriting, but not his songwriting. Actually, Alan Roberts, the bassist of the band, is the primary songwriter. The ultimate delivery, which unfortunately came at the toll of his and other people's realities, is where the story and life of this band turns to unescapable agony. Keith's parents, who bear a striking close descriptiveness to the calling card of the song This Time, were heavy drug users. His mother died from overdose while he was an infant, and his father died similarly in 2002. Keith survived his childhood under his grandparents, and I guess survival's the right word here, and I'm going to leave the truth and the hurt of the word survival there, as it certainly wasn't a nurturing environment, and given his gender dysphoria, it was a catastrophic situation that more than likely spawned many of the music credits of the songwriting of this band. This is an awful experience, but one that probably continues to disrupt upbringings today of all kinds of families. Keith Caputo was not comfortable in his own image or body and would come out about it, transforming not only by name, but by much more. In fact, at one point becoming Mina Caputo, which could not have been anywhere near easy in the environment of the band, as well as the surrounding environment of people and the music genre they're in. Needless to say, the survival of Life of Agony was in complete parallel with the bandmates and the continual gender dysphoria surrounding and swirling about them, as well as tough record business and uncertainty of how to maintain a level of alternative metal success to fulfill the entire band's spirit. While I'm speaking about Keith here a bit, I have this feeling in the songwriting of Alan Robert that he had plenty of material surrounding him and his own life as well. He completely can surprise you, and he's an excellent comic book creator as well, which you can look into and enjoy. But he clearly is able to compartmentalize his writing, imagery, and history within Life of Agony and keep himself incredibly grounded. So I come in at the album that would become Keith's, Mina's exit. It's called Soul Searching Sun, which to this day is probably the most accessible record in their discography, having a more tame, psychedelic, alternative sound. However, they did pick up that sound the album prior, which kind of angered most people that were following the band early, because if you understand River Runs Red, it is a metal album more than it is an alternative album. It does have its grunge position, but it's definitely heavy, raw, and dark, which this particular record didn't have as much of that. This is one I picked up in the used bin after a reviewer from our local newspaper, Buffalo News, dropped it off. While the album fits nicely into my collection after a few listens, and with my lesser-known knowledge of the prior albums, it quickly got forgotten against the album releases of that year at that time. Let me just give you a few, just in case you're wondering how something gets obscured. OK Computer had come out, Blur, self-titled, Homogenic by Bjork, Urban Hymns, that's the Verve, as well as harder-hitting albums such as My Own Prison, that's Creed, who was the biggest band of that era, and actually of any era after. Clumsy from Our Lady Peace, who I adore, and Color and the Shape, which is the Foo Fighters' second record. You can see why and where this album was placed and how the band was struggling kind of to maintain the identity and thrust they originally had from their debut, and how Ugly, which was from 1995, the prior record, had kind of moved a bit into that alternative grunge rather than hold closer to the metal and strength of that prior delivery. That would be the case as well when they would reunite for Broken Valley in 2005, which had more shades of Rage Against the Machine than the previous identity. Not that that's a bad thing entirely, considering where music was at that point, but just had a little less wallop on it. Figuring more and more into the mold of like a Stone Temple Pilots with alternative swagger and that groove and those swallowing sounds like Last Cigarette. Keith Caputo, in her solo works, which kind of come in between the band's issues and his or her own personal struggles leaving the band. And this is an interesting rabbit hole that can be explored outside this unique band. From listening to these, you can kind of discern where the styles might have been affected by this kind of musical expression that she underwent to maintain the love and devotion to the music. Much more enduringly put together and more refined than Life of Agony, while attempting to control over the love and of self and body and overall image. So a true life of 20 years of an agony that most of us will probably never come to understand. However, it did yield some interesting and well put together albums. I'll just list them so you have them, and each, well, not all of them, but I'll give you a song for each. Keith Caputo solo albums, Died Laughing in 1999, and we'll check out the song Selfish. Died Laughing Pure in 2000, which is acoustic versions of Died Laughing. Perfect Little Monsters in 2003. You can listen to Got Monsters. It's a good track. Heart's Blood on Your Dawn, 2006. Listen to this. This is Kill with God.
So please make them well, 'cause I can't go to sleep. I can't get from my head.
A fondness for hometown Scars in 2008. Scars is going to be a thing that comes up quite a bit. As Much Truth as One Can Bear in 2013. Love Hard in 2016. And then The Mons in 2020. Can you ever go back to the scene of the crime? Well, when you get picked up by Napalm Records to support your endeavors because they know what you're capable of, it certainly can happen. Again, when you're listening to this band over these albums from this 1993 to just recently in 2019, you will come to understand the talent and the scope of the music and how it really is in line with some of those bands I mentioned already. It can happen. It can certainly happen. But however, the question really remained, should you, considering where this all started with the debut album? Well, after the return of the band and Keith Caputo finally coming out as a transgender, Keith Mina Caputo, they delivered 2017's A Place Where There's No More Pain. Successfully accepted. We finally come to 2019's The Sound of Scars. Again, Scars coming back up, which is actually a follow-up record to the debut. And here is that crushing moment of memory, the scars of a lifetime, and the placement it gets, not only from songwriter Alan Roberts, but the delivery of the overall full package and tilt of the band, making you sort of realize that they're not only been this good for so long, but in these scars, they find a tremendous exhilaration that truly, despite the bleakness it's centered upon, tremendous and oddly told from an inspiring position. This sequel finds the band in a completely absorbed and comfortable position from the beginning, through their changes of sound, melding it kind of all together into banger after banger that connects with authority and a respect they seem to have in this incarnation, even with the departure of drummer Sal Briscato, who was originally with the band to begin with, and who had been through the thick and thin of it all. Mina Caputo, this is the first time listed as the lead singer. And in actuality, this will be the last time that name would be listed. There's even a documentary film, which I do recommend, so as to give you a tremendous amount of great context for all the families and members and that are involved. But it doesn't end there. Keith Caputo in 2024 announced that he had been cured from his years of gender dysphoria, claiming to understand that he had always been a man and the emotional and medical process and hormone use did horrible things to his body, his mind, not very good for his depression either, and he should have never, ever gone down this road looking for happiness. If you feel inclined to hear this interview, it is still available. And if you go to our website for the article, the link is there. He does state that he's in a better place of healing and considering the progress to this last album with apparent one on the way this year. From what I think I gather, I hear great things, and the music itself should be the avenue of release for his depression, any of the bandmates' depressions, anxieties, and to reach the masses that feel similar or have such connections. We all need an outlet. It can be the playing of music. It can be singing the music, writing the music, or it can be just us listening to the music. But we have to respect where it comes from and the way people can take it, they can hear it. Life of Agony seemed to have been towing an interesting line of these incredible anxieties and their personal lives. And somehow they found, some through more tribulation and trials than others, a way to survive, contribute, and leave a newer impression, more endearing than the scars they carry after 30 years. Life of Agony albums, those in my collection, I'll let you know. River Runs Red starts at 1993. I had that recording. Ugly, 1995. Soul Searching Sun, 1997. I have that record. Broken Valley in 2005. A Place Where There's No More Pain in 2017, 12 years later. And then 2019's The Sound of Scars, which I have. What did you think of Life of Agony and this incredible story, the songwriting, the truths, the realities, how it makes you feel? Please comment, leave us a note or two, and maybe click the like button. And, of course, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I will see you next week for Motor Psycho on Unknown Sundays. I'm just now getting into this band, and I thought it'd be kind of cool to take it from a standpoint of my purchase of every single record without hearing a single song. We're on the web at beyondyourradio.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, of course. We've got articles, videos. The podcast is very, very soon. Albums, bands, artists, anything we can get our hands on. Go Beyond Your Radio with us, a real music appreciation channel. Thank you for watching and happy listening.